Dear God, thank you for this time together. Please be with us in our thoughts and actions. Please help us to seek your will in your face and help us to be able to be an example of your love to this world and help us to be thoughtful and listen to others. Amen. All right. So, the talk today is called Listen to Me. And it's subtitled, It's Not About Me. So I'm going to start by talking about something dear to my heart, and this is Mr. Emery and Stanley. So yesterday, Emery was working on his design and planning for Emery's Beautiful Day theme park. On the right side of your screen, if you look at it, you can see that is the schematic layout of Emery's Beautiful Day theme park. At the welcome gate, it has a statue of Emery hugging Ida, his sister, and then there's a T-shirt stand, and there's a whole bunch of kind of new types of rides and old types of rides. So, anyways, Emery's pretty obsessed with his theme park designs these days. So, it's like every other theme park, but just more Emery in this theme park. It's going to be the theme park will be based off of the movie revenues that Emery creates. He has a little movie camera that he records his siblings doing things, so he figures that the movie revenue will create the revenue stream for Emery's Beautiful Day theme park. I happen to get admission for free, and I can bring friends, so I did want to let everybody on this call know that if you ever need to get into Emery's Beautiful Day theme park, I can get you in for free because I will have to drive Emery to work every day. So these are a couple of the new thoughts. And Mason Angel, who's not on the line this morning, but sometimes is, he is a assistant chief architect. So he did draw most of the drawing on the screen that you see right now in helping Emery put together his design. So, Emery, this kind of reminds me, I kind of create little things in my life that are kind of all about me at times. And it's super cute when I see it in Emery. In my life, it's usually not quite as cute. But he wants to be heard, and that's usually what I'm like. I want to be heard too. But it's hard to redirect Emery from his passion at times. So yesterday we had an opportunity where we had a problem with the dryer, so we wanted to hang out some laundry. So we said, Emery, help us hang out laundry. And it was all we could do to convince him to want to hang laundry yesterday, because he wanted to draw the new pictures of the hotels and the rides at Emery's Beautiful Day Park, and he didn't want to take time to hang up laundry. And in this, it's super cute. It's a great memory. We're so thankful for this memory. But we find ourselves trying to redirect Emery to think about the idea that, hey, it's not about me. We don't have to be completely focused about me. I mean, I know it's hard for you to believe, but I don't think a theme park that's focused completely around Emery is going to be a financially stable, business adventure. But it's fun to watch. It's silly to watch, but we also want to be a steward of the time that we have with Emery and help him realize that he needs not to be focused completely on himself. So that was on Sunday. On Friday, we had an opportunity in Fort Collins, the whitest neighborhood that I've lived in since graduation from college. And we went to a Black Lives Matter protest in Fort Collins. And it didn't feel like much of a protest, although I've never been to a protest before. And 5 out of 6 of our family had never been to a protest, and the only other protest that anybody in our family had ever been to was a Tea Party against taxation protest in 2010, kind of a "don't tread on me" type of idea, which was a far cry from those types of protests. And that protest was really focused on, what somebody can do for me. But this was not really directed on us. We could easily stay on the mountain not interact with anybody, and just kind of stay silent. But we thought it was important to bring our kids down and just stand and listen to people. And we heard a lot of people talk. It was not PG or G rated. It probably wasn't even PG-13 a lot of times. And it's kind of a tough decision because you have kids you care about deeply, but you want to hear them have you listen. You want to be an example of listening to people, although sometimes what's being said is not the best things for little ears to hear. It brings up discussions that, sometimes we don't want to hear yet. But we took them down. And what it was for us is it was a very minor sacrifice of time, a very minor sacrifice of comfort, because we had to talk to our kids about words that they didn't understand, and they wanted to know why that person was so angry or why that person was this. But really what it was an opportunity for us to focus on that's not about me. It wasn't about us at that time. It was about standing next to other people in humanity that are loved children of God. And at the end of it, it was a real struggle because the kids all got ice cream. So, a crazy protest in Fort Collins with ice cream at the end of it. Of course, if you look at the picture now, Stanley looks like he's kind of wondering why he doesn't get ice cream. But so now it's a little bit about our week, and what it made me think in this week is, what does it mean to listen to others? We were down there to listen to others. We have nothing to add. We have no value in giving wise guidance on racial injustice or what it's like to be the center of racism, because that just hasn't been our. But what's it mean to listen to somebody? And Merriam-Webster says to listen is to hear something with thoughtful intent or give attention, which a lot of times we think of listening as, hey, I'm listening to you, but the thoughtful intent is kind of missing, or the give consideration is missing. We'd be maybe listening to somebody and we heard what they said, but we're not really listening. We're not giving consideration or thoughtful intent. We're just waiting for our time to come back. And listening, a couple of things that it says is my time is not as important as yours. So when we listen to somebody, we're making a conscious decision to say, you know what, I'm going to give you some time right now. A lot of times it's saying my story is not as important as yours, in the sense that I want to hear your story in this situation. I don't need to tell you my story. And then it also says my opinion is not as important as yours. And that's a tough thing we deal with right now, is everybody has a desire to be right, and your passions are related to the fact that you want to be right, or you think you have a good solution for something. But part of listening is saying my opinion is not as important as yours. I don't always need to fix these situations when I listen, and that's hard for me. When I listen to somebody, I hear something come up and I want to fix it. I want to tell them what to do wrong. Do A and B, and then C will come out as a result. I don't really want to sit around and give them more time, because I want to move on to what I have to do with the rest of my time. I want to give them my opinion, and I want to fix the situation. But listening really requires patience. And there's a part of me that wishes it didn't, because it'd be a lot easier, get done a lot quicker if it didn't require patience. But I question that, in watching my kids and watching my life, or seeing my life, I know that I can listen without following. So I can listen to somebody and I can consider their idea, but I sure don't need to follow them. And that's easy to think of. You can think of all sorts of examples. My kids are listening to me. They'll repeat what I said. They consider what I said, but they sure don't follow or do what I asked them to do. Another question that I struggle with a little bit this morning is, can I also follow without listening? And I think I can follow without listening. So I may not consider somebody's opinion that important. I may not give that much attention to it. But I'll just kind of fall in line like a lemon, go over the cliff with them, just because it's kind of the easy thing to go. And just kind of a side note is, it kind of made me wonder this morning, where is the church in 2020, the American church in 2020? Are we listening without following? Are we following without listening? Or are we listening and following? And who are we listening to? Who are we following? So in listening, I'd mentioned listening requires patience. And I had a question about what patience was, and I discussed this with Emery and Ida yesterday. And Merriam-Webster says patience is the ability to wait for a long time without becoming annoyed or upset. And Emery and Ida both agree that patience is just waiting. And I would say sometimes it's waiting. But if you can think of, patience as just waiting, then sometimes you think of it as kind of when you're in a bathroom line. You have patience, but you're really annoyed and you're really upset, and you're waiting, but you don't really have patience. You may say, well, I'm going to have patience to wait my turn, but you're really waiting your turn, but you're becoming annoyed, you're becoming upset, you're becoming uncomfortable. It's not really patience. But what patience is patience is a sacrifice of time. I can't think of a single time in my life when I wouldn't say that patience meant that I had to sacrifice some time. And sometimes I did it. I gave up time. And it was pretty easy sacrifice because it's something I wanted to do. Other times it's a lot more difficult for a sacrifice. Abby was blessed with the opportunity that Emery wanted to have tea with her for Mother's Day. So while doing that, the entire time was, Abby had the opportunity to listen to Emery the entire time while they were having tea. And it requires quite a bit of patience and a sacrifice of time. Patience is also a sacrifice of control. So we want a desired outcome. We want to make sure that our destiny is defined by the means and methods and the input variables that we desire. But patience is saying, I'm going to give up control a little bit and allow somebody else to be in control of this aspect of my life or this detail. Love is patient. That comes from 1 Corinthians 13. And patience is an example of love in our life. And patience is also humble. Patience is saying, hey, I'm going to give time, I'm going to give control, I'm going to sacrifice a little bit, I'm going to wait a little bit even though I don't want to, and I'm going to put your story, your opinion, and your time above mine. And we very rarely are able to do this all the time, but we can at times. So we talked about struggling with humility and pride in a pride-driven world before. And pride destroys humility. Pride is saying, I deserve something. I've worked hard for this status in life. I have done more than other people have done. I've taken a privilege, but yet I've worked hard beyond that, and that has meant something. Or I've done it all on my own. I pulled myself up by my bootstraps. I don't have to wait because I've done this before. I'm in control. My opinion matters. So it's reminded me of some quotes from Purpose Driven Life by Rick Warren, and it says, humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less often. And then another quote that I heard this week from Rick Warren, kind of unrelated, was saying that one of his first things he likes to read in the morning is a little note that he wrote on his mirror that says, it's not about me. And he places it on his mirror and he just says, it's not about me. And the idea is that our stories never, our stories that we have in life, we tend to focus on about me because that's what we're around the most, and we tend to turn things back to being around me. But the idea and the reminder that it's not about me when being in relationships with others is always a very valuable tool to help bring out humility in your life. So, we're in Pride Month this week, and I think it's very important this month, and it's very important to love others, regardless of where their journeys have brought them from. But when we think about pride and humility, we think about pride really covers up our questions, our concerns, our worries, our fears in life with me and who I am and how I do something and what I have done and how other people see me, whereas humility cover up those same questions with others. And if others is focused on, you put the focus back on other people, or who can I be towards others, or probably the best opportunity in my life has been, who am I through Christ? Who am I? How can I be a reflection of love towards others? And as a thought, following Christ is a really horrible hobby and a bad photo op. It has to be a way of life. So humility, Philippians 2 says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above ourselves. And then Paul continued on in Philippians to say, in your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Jesus Christ, who in the very nature of God did not consider himself equal with God, something to be used to his advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness and being found in the appearance of man. He humbled himself by becoming obedient, even obedient to death on the cross. And I think of the idea that, if God could make himself into man, spend time with us, waste his time while on this earth, that he could have been doing other things. Listen to our stories while he's here on earth and still listening to our stories. Why is it that we find it so hard to listen to other people's stories, to allow other people to have an opinion, to be able to give up time while doing that? Without a sense of humility and acknowledgement of our own fallibility, we gradually begin to feel justified in everything we think, say, do, even when it hurts others, because we do not observe our own actions as being something that can be approached. So we're reproachable, in other words. And the idea is, we get to a point where if we don't have humility, we just think we have to be right. We just can't think that there's any reason we could be wrong. And I imagine every person on this call could have an example of somebody else in their life that you say, oh yeah, I can think of that person. But I also know that every person on this call have times where we are that person, where our own arrogance and pride and ignorance will kill our humility and have us think that the story is about us, not about others, and have us focus on ourselves. Being humble itself is a spiritual practice. I look at being humble as being a worship towards my God, but I would say, even if you don't believe in the same God that I do, that came down as Jesus Christ on earth, then it's a spiritual practice. Just being humble, thinking of others more highly than you. Think of yourself a little less often. It's not thinking less of yourself, just think of ourselves a little bit less often. Make a decision when I'm focused on things that I'm going to do, when I'm focused on Emery World or Emery's Beautiful Day Park. Take a little bit of time and think, hey, can I help hang the laundry? Can I help listen to somebody else? Can I help somebody else do something? Listen to the concerns of others, even when the concerns of others are so foreign to what my experiences were. Be willing to listen. I don't think that, I'm not telling everybody to go out and go to the next Black Lives Matter protest in your area. I mean, if you want to, wonderful. But find ways to listen to people that don't make you always as comfortable with the experiences that they've had and the relationships they've had as what you've had. Sacrifice your need to have your opinion viewed as being right by others. If we could just get past the idea of being right all the time, we'd be able to listen to a lot more people. And in closing, before I move on to sediment transport ideas on the North Platte River, is a couple questions. Am I patiently listening with humility? You know, and that's almost three questions there. Am I patient? Am I listening? And when I'm patient and listening, do I have humility? Am I thinking of other people? I don't know if it's possible to be patient and listen without humility. Uh, but I threw it in there because I was like, if it is possible, I'd rather have people emphasize the idea of being um, humble as well. Am I too consumed with myself? And sometimes myself, I don't think of myself as being too consumed with myself. A lot of times, the times that I'm most consumed with myself, I don't even notice I'm that consumed with myself. But I think of things as my control, my opinion, uh, my time. You know, I'm not consumed about myself. I just need everybody to get this done on time so we can get this finished up. Okay, so maybe that's your control. Maybe that's my time that I'm concerned about. Um, can I listen to others even when I'm not sure what questions to ask? And this struck me as pretty wild this week because I heard a number of things that I feel hurt. I feel sadness when listening to some of the people that were talking at the protest. And I could hear that they had had such hurt through their life and they had things that they were angry about. And I could hear sadness. I don't even know what questions to ask, but am I still okay with listening? It doesn't mean I have to follow what they're saying, but am I okay with listening at that time? Can I pray or meditate to seek God's help? Uh, or can I seek help from others? Um, and then the final question is, who am I listening to and who am I following? So sometimes we think of the idea that, well, I need to listen to only the people that I follow. Well, maybe it's more important that we listen to people regardless if we follow them or not. And it doesn't mean that we have to agree with them. We can disagree with somebody that we're listening to, but just the idea of allowing somebody to voice an opinion is so valuable. I mean, I think of my kids growing up, and if I never allowed my kids to voice an opinion, if I just say, follow me, I'm not going to listen to what your thoughts are on Emery's Beautiful Day World, because that's just silly, and that's foolish, and that's a bad thing to do. That's going to be a lot different than if I say, hey, I'm going to listen to you, Emery, because I love you dearly. Um, but you know what? I don't think this is a good way to go. I can I can show you who I follow, and maybe you want to follow who I'm following, or maybe you can follow a different direction. But I can listen to you still. I think of this as a relationship, as my relationship with Christ. I'm able to I'm able to whine. I'm able to complain like a little kid towards Christ. Um, and we look out at the stars at night. There's 100 billion galaxies out there for some reason. We don't, and scientists aren't exactly sure why, but we know that it's an ever-expanding world. We know that at some point there was a bang that occurred, and everything seems to be expanding outward. So it's a growing, uh, it's growing space, if you will. Uh, and as we're doing this, part of listening is just saying, hey, I care, I value you, I want to be here. I don't know what to ask, but I want to listen to your concerns. Um, and listening does not dictate following. Um, so I think of this pandemic as an opportunity to grow in humility. Uh, we had a lot of idols that we worshipped in our country and the world related to economies. It's no different than the idols of Baal back in the Egyptian times. Uh, and it's just an idol of the economy at the time. And this current injustice is an opportunity to embrace humanity. It's an opportunity for us to have an exclamation mark in our life to say, okay, 50, 60 years ago, we were struggling with this, and we've kind of pushed it under the rug. And now it's time for us to really look at humanity as being, hey, there's really one race. There's not. You don't have to have a whole bunch of different races. We can look at humanity as being one race, and that we're all love children of God, and that we don't have to divide ourselves. It's a time for unity as humanity. And, you know, let's try to focus this week in saying it's not about me. I encourage you just to kind of whisper that to yourself at times, especially the challenging times when you find yourself wanting it to be about me. Just say it's not about me. You know, it's my desire that 2020 has been a weird year, man. And it's my desire that I can celebrate 2020 and I can look back at it and say that, you know, the love of God is really what was shown to me in 2020. Different ways to love others related to, you know, this pandemic, related to this social injustice, related to whatever the next thing is, that there's always a way that we can be loving people in these current situations. So those are my closing thoughts and comments. I'll leave it open for about a minute if anybody wants to say anything, and then we'll move on to the sediment study of the North Platte River.
Hey, Dave, I just wanted to share with you that there was actually a Black Lives Matter protest in Nunavut, in Iqaluit, the capital city, and there's no black people in Iqaluit, so it's gone far and wide. So there's a lot of people standing around in parkas protesting, so kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it amazes me, Brad, with the world is kind of getting behind a U.S. protest right now, which is very supported in the sense that, you know, sometimes we think of it as people in America says, well, you know, we care for so many people in the world. Well, we actually have the world caring for us right now so much.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool.
Hey, Dave, good morning, George. And
Good morning, George.
I love your comment about listening. And I think one of the things, you hear a lot in mediation and other constructs is this scenario that listening is also an active action. It's not a passive action. And it's one where sometimes people say things, but you got to understand the real meaning behind what they're saying. And a big part of that is first staying silent. Secondly, really listening to what's being said. And which kind of brings me to another point. A friend of mine, and I is a professor at Vermont Law School, was a classmate of mine, and he is now starting something called restorative justice, and had started it a year before these activities. And a big part of that is this concept of listening to not only the victim, but the perpetrator. And there's been a lot of really interesting stories where the victims, when they hear about what happened, the life of the perpetrator and the systematic issues they have to contend with, they actually, some of these victims and perpetrators have actually become very close. And there's this new way of looking at, our justice system. So listening is a big part of that, and active. So thank you for your comments on that.
Thank you, George. Dear God, thank you for this time together. Help us to have a desire to listen to others. Help us to just have an eagerness to hear the stories of other people, even when we don't understand them. Help us to be able to find ways to appreciate and love others in this time and in other times. We're thankful for the opportunities and the relationships you've given us. We love you, and we're so blessed that you care